going on, my friends? I'm Rick, and this is your seat at the table, and we are looking at, going down our little short dive into Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, circa late 80s, early 90s. This is the Monster Mythology Rules Supplement. Dungeon Master's Guide. So this one basically is a different variation on the Deities and Demigods book. And if you're not familiar with that source book or related books, it's basically the mythical god pantheons for various races in the D&D setting. This one here is similar to that as well, and it concentrates mostly on demi-humans and monsters, or evil races and things like that. I had mixed results with this book. First off, I had the original Deities and Demigods and Fiend Folio, the very first edition, first print hardbacks when they came out, and those were among the books that got destroyed by my mother by fire during the Satanic Panic. And big part of that was because of the cover art on the Fiend Folio and the terms deities and demigods. That's what helped her be convinced that it was a satanic whatever. And so in the years after that, I was able to reacquire both the Fiend Folio, which eventually I'll probably do a video on, and Deities and Demigods, my copy, although they're neither one are the original printings, which is a terrible shame as far as I'm concerned, especially considering how it all came about in the way it did, and so on and so forth. So when we look at this book, I still bought it because, like I said, when I got into a particular genre or system, I bought everything I could that I could afford that came out that made sense to me. There were a lot of material, I will grant you, that I did not purchase, in part because I didn't see no real value in them. Mostly modules. I had a handful of the very original modules, the Hill Giants and so damn White Plume Mountain or whatever, but there was a whole series, and they were interlinked. So I had about a dozen, maybe 15 of them. I don't know that any of them survived. I do have some of the Forgotten Realms modules and stuff that were produced, in part because they filled in the missing gaps in locations in the Forgotten Realms setting. And that's kind of how come I purchased everything I did for my Middle Earth role-playing game system, because even the smallest play module had a contributing factor, as in that it filled in another little puzzle piece in the grand view that is Tolkien's work. So that was the value for me for having these things. So when we look at this, a rare occasion I got it out, and I was looking for some kind of, I don't know, 2-bit piece to toss in, because when I was doing campaign building. But for the lion's share, the book's still almost new. The paper's still stiff. You can feel it. I mean, I don't know, it kind of covered a lot of ground that was already covered in other existing books. Yes, little Missy, in the background you can hear a little cry. This would be our latest little project. Little Missy here is a very skinny, we call them calicos, but she's not a calico, but she's very colorful. And she showed up outside about 2 weeks ago, and the weather was getting really, really hot, and she's literally emancipated, or skin and bones. And she was down last month at the neighbors a couple houses down, and they were kind of feeding her. She really is a docile cat for a stray, but she's also extremely young. So I don't know that she was. Part of me thinks she might have been born in somebody's house and got out, or was kicked out. Right? Stuff happens. But then there are feral cats that, if they're treated real well at the very beginning, once they're born, when they're very young, they don't get that aggressive tendencies until later. Anyway, she's skin and bones, and of course the neighbors down there, they weren't really trying to feed her. And she made her way down to our house, and as soon as she showed up, she jumps right up in the window, and she's trying to come in the house, and she wants to follow you inside. And so she hung out like Mr. Seven was outside. He's in our garage, of course. So she would park herself up on top of one of the cat boxes so she could look in the windows and watch us. Yes, yes, you're okay. Yes, I know. You're saying hi to the world. Yes, you are. Yes. So I think she may have a case of worms or something. Unfortunately, because she's straight and we're poor, I'm just being truthful. We can't afford to take her to a vet, and it's a terrible. You know, I got a water bill yesterday that's 3 times what I normally get because of some weird adjustment that went on, and I mean that's like getting hit by a bat. I've got to come up with yet another $100 to pay this $170 damn dollar bill that I was expecting to pay about a $60 water bill, and now it's like $180. And so I've got to come up with that next week. And then I was supposed to work late last night, which I got to a job, and once in a rare moon, you'll go to a job and somebody's beat you to it. So I should have had another 4 or 5 hours of overtime last night on my check for next Friday, and it didn't happen. I got there and somebody had already pumped it out, and I'm not going to pump. I'm not going to pretend like I'm pumping 6 inches of stuff out of the bottom of something. Just say I did it. No, I called the boss, and he's going to call the owner today to try to figure out what up, right? What's going on? So is what it is. Anyway, little Missy here. I says if you can pick her up and bring her in the house, to bring her in here in the art room, since Mama is back out in the living room. That is a little bit of a drama y'all might have missed out on too. A couple 3 or 4 weeks ago, the same day the wife and I went to the fair. It was Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago, and we came home, and Mama had bolted out the front door when Brenda wasn't watching, and she'd spent the weekend out in the yard, out in the back in the woods and stuff. And then Sunday morning she came back in the house because I think she decided she didn't want to be out in the woods because in here she gets fed 3 or 4 times a day. Brenda, the wife, pampers the crap out of her. So I mean, it's better for her to be inside. She is a bit of special needs cat. She's still struggling to get used to the other indoor cats, and vice versa. It is what it is. I mean, this one here, we want little Missy to get some weight on her, and then we'll take her to the ARL's program for the snip, the trap neuter release, and get her fixed and get her shots, and she'll be much healthier and she'll live longer. And the other concern was it's hard to say with these young cats when they're going to go into heat, and I thought, gee, we don't want her outside and dragging in more males and other issues, so it's just better off. And she's so far been well behaved. We got a little a cat carrier over there, and she's sitting in it right this moment, because if I didn't have her in a cat carrier, she'd be right here and we would not get any videos done. Actually, I was concerned that I might not get any videos done for a while because of the fact that, anytime you got a cat and you're trying to deal with one that's mostly feral, things change. We don't want her getting into the rest of the house with the other cats, and so we got to be careful with that. And then in addition to that, like I said, just sitting down at the table and trying to do something for a couple hours, and that's usually a couple hours when I do numerous videos in a day. So that is part of it. She seems to be, yes, you're just sitting there listening to me, aren't you? Yeah, you'll be out of there, sure enough. We're not leaving you in that thing. Yes, Mama put a pee pad in there for you, and you got food in there just in case. But it's my other thought was to go ahead and put the carrier in the room and leave the door open. And I told the wife, so just try to feed her in it. Just get her used to going in and out of it, because she's going to have to go in it again anyway. At some point, we'll take her to the ARL. And what I mean by taking her, she will come back from the ARL. At that point, she either goes back outside, or she ends up going into the garage with the rest of the damn cats, depending on what she wants to do or how well she behaves. Because we're at our max for I live in an unincorporated area town, so we can literally get away with having this many cats and not be a problem. If we were 2 blocks further south, we would be directly in the city limits, which then would put a cap on how many pets you can have for a number of reasons. You know, I'm not kidding when I say we're spending about $80 a week on the cat food and cat supplies, and that's the truth. And that's $80 less than I'd have for, you know, other things. And it's been a rough year. I mean, I'm sure a lot of y'all are in the same boat. Uh, you know, because of the way the situation is set up here, I get my supplemented health care through the local community or county hospital. But I have to meet a certain financial requirement, so I can't afford to take a raise this year. I told my bosses that don't give me a raise. I mean, don't give me a raise. And as it is, the overtime pushes the boundary a little bit too. I mean, I think we exceeded the Obamacare thingamabob, and I have no idea how to adjust it. There's supposed to be a way to adjust it, and getting a hold of these people and talking to people and getting through, it's such a pain. It's so hard. I mean, you guys, I'm sure some of you guys have dealt with this stuff, or, you know, other things related to it. Anyhow, so getting back to the topic that I've got terribly off of. So we're talking once again monster mythology, and the section. So we got a chapter on avatars, how to create them and how to run them, and then there's things in the back, another section for avatars and how to interact with them in a campaign setting. So priests and priesthoods, and talking about transgressions by priests and clerics, shamans and witch doctors, priests of different races, deities included in this book. So we go through, you know, a lot of different stuff. We got abbreviation, trying to explain what everything is and what everything isn't. There's some good artwork in the book, right? So we get the elven pantheon and the gnome deities and the gods of the dwarves, gods of the halflings. Then we got more detailed entries for the various gods of these demi races. So, and most of these are duplicated in other Dungeons and Dragons material. So if you had the deities and demigods book, you didn't need this. Not really, because it just, this is kind of expanded. It give you a few, I don't know, 15% more stuff than what the other book did, or different stuff from what the other book did. So at the end of the day, you had to ask yourself, did I need both books? And sometimes, though, when you're buying books and you don't have a chance to really sit down and go through them and do compare notes, that's what happens. I've got a number of books that I've bought thinking they were something, and then I get home and I've gone through them and realize that they are something, but for me they're just a duplicate of an earlier source book that I own, and so other than for aesthetic purposes, there's no real value in buying a newer version of an older book, unless you're trying to complete some kind of collection or something, you know. Anyway, so we get into all kinds of stuff. Then we got the goblinoid deities, orc pantheon, bugbear gods, goblin gods, kobold gods. Then we get into the greater, so Grumish, which comes across in numerous things. I mean, a lot of these, like I said, it's just repetitive. So gods of the goblins, and for the most part, unless you run a campaign that's revolving, or, you know, have you ever run a campaign where everybody's a goblin? I mean, that's can be a fun and interesting and somewhat questionable pastime, depending on how you view things, right? So, I mean, it is. I've tried to take the variants from just about every. You play enough over enough years, you will find that you will challenge that game every perspective you can think of, and some that most people think, oh, maybe they shouldn't have gone down that rabbit hole. You know, so the underdark, more dark gods, illithid and beholder deities, pagan underworld gods, and deep elves and mykids, the lost gods, gods of the drow, all which come back up in numerous other publications. You know, and I can't honestly say that I haven't looked at 3 different publications of Loth or Loth, depending, or however you want to pronounce it, from different source books to see just how much the wording is different, but the concept of the individual, you know, is the same. So it doesn't really, at the end of the day, matter. So anyway, and we just keep going on. Here we got gods of the seas and skies. So gods of the sea elves. Right. Deep slush, gods of the sky. Bunch of names I'm not even gonna pronounce. I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce. Ugh. Right. Introduction, gods of the scaly folk. Yeah, and I think the only other time I ever had a reason to pull this one off the shelf is every once in a blue moon, I'll get a player who wants to play one of the obscure races or obscure monster races that are playable, and then we'll say, well, what about this and what about that? And they say, okay, so you want to be a, I don't know, you want to be a half kobold shaman, whatever, I don't know. Let's look up some stuff for kobolds and grab it off the shelf, kind of thing. But for the most part, it's really seen very, very little mileage. Another thing is, I'm not a huge religion fanatic when it comes to in-game worlds. That just seems to add, and you know, I'm all for layers and wheels and gears inside of gears and wheels inside of wheels, but I don't know. Like I said, I have my own opinions on faith and church, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole here today. Anyway, so we get into some more information on avatars. Specific avatars for specific gods. So an avatar, well, is a representation of a specific deity. It is a weaker version and or a quote, maybe a mortal flux over of one, but there's options and more options and opportunities with an avatar when it comes to interactions with playing with player characters, and that's what this last section, the appendix avatars into gameplay. And I had read this one a number of times and tried to make use of what I could, that I felt was usable. We talk about an avatar's home, avatar's patrons, an avatar sidekick. You know, it says here, especially for chaotic, especially thieving avatars and player characters, it's not impossible that a solo player character might accompany an avatar on some jaunt or piece of thievery or trickery, e.g. with Bandoris, the halfling thief god, or other similar figure. There's no reason the player character has no avatar is an avatar until the avatar chooses to reveal this in a way that should be incorporated into a suitable piece of trickery or other flourish. And I think if you played as if you've been a game master long enough, you will have experimented with something of that nature, of where somebody has a connection to some kind of deity that has pulled their butt out of more than one fire, figuratively and you know what I'm saying. So anyway, that's just the possibilities. I don't know, it's my opinion. It's a good source book if you really want to get into a deep delve on deities and demigods, and there are plenty of information and tools in here for applying avatars of said deities to your campaigns. I'm a mixed opinion. If you can get a cheap copy, and it's worth having it, to have it on your shelf just for the read. Sadly, in my opinion, it's really, when I hear things called fluff pieces, I know full well what fluff is. Fluff is the stuff that basically creates the lore and the stories that revolve around the mechanics and the settings that are created for various genres. And so when we look at it from that perspective, there's value in it. It's a matter of personal whatever. Anyway, I'm Rick. puppy. And that's little Miss, and little Missy over here. There's actually, she's listening to me, but she's got her back to me, so I think she's either upset. At least she's not freaking out, because you never know how they're going to handle it. If she was stressed out, we wouldn't be doing this. The other option would be for me to take my rig that I have here for doing my videos and take them out to the kitchen and try to do it on the kitchen table, which when I mentioned that to my wife the other day, she said, well, then I'll have to listen to your videos. So because she'll be in the living room, and and then of course there's 4 other cats out there, so they would want to get their noses in. Not that I'm adverse to that, but it could be a thing. The worst case scenario is also an option, is to pack up my rig, which is my laptop and my headphones and the camera doohickey here, which all of it's removable. I could throw it all in a bag and then go up to work and use the office desk up there, or the kitchen table at work. Nobody's up there on Saturday. If I go in the afternoon, it's highly unlikely my employer is going to show up, and they're not going to care if I do that. I have a key to the building. I can get in. It's just the trouble and hassle of going, all the trouble it takes to move everything and to do it well, and then I want to do it again. I mean, it is what it is. I'm gonna we have Labor Day weekend coming up next week, and we're going to do I'm taking 3 days off. Well, 2.5. I'm going to work late Friday night, but I've got it scheduled to have Monday off, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or Saturday and Sunday and Monday off for sure. Although I'll probably sleep half a Saturday, make up for being out most of the night. I got a strip mall out in Altoona on the east side of Des Moines, and it's 4 trips. Usually get started about 8 p.m. and get done about 3 in the morning. So it's much faster than the same size, the same outfit that owns that strip mall. The one I did the other night is called Panzurieal. It's on the west side of Des Moines, and in a suburb called West Des Moines. And it takes 11 to 12 hours to do that job, where it takes about 8 hours to do, 7 to 8 hours to do the one on the east side, because just how far apart they are. Because the east side is far closer to where we dispose of stuff than the one on the west side. Not that you guys care. Anyway, there you go. Till next time, guys. Because you want the cat girls to exist.